Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another installment of Galley Stories, Stories of the Bering Sea and beyond. As we sit here today on the back of the gale, my guest today, some of you probably know him. His name is Willie Manchester. Willie, how are you today?
I'm doing good, Mark.
Hey,
Glad I could come down.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. So, prior to this, we've not had really no prep. You've listened to a couple of the podcasts and have an idea of where we're going to go here.
Yeah.
So let's dive in. Where were you born?
I was born in Ballard, Washington, right at Swedish, and then I was raised just up the street in Shoreline. So I lived there with my family, my older brother, my older sister, and my mom and dad for the same house. Grew up in the same house the whole time until I moved out.
They still live there?
No, they sold it recently.
So how do we get the bug? Did you grow up around it? Or?
I did. So all of my dad and almost all of my uncles have fished at one point in their lives or another, and some of them stuck with it. Most of them didn't. But my uncle that I was really close with, Kari Toivola, he kind of got the bug in me and always was talking about the stories and everything. So I always kind of wanted to be a fisherman. And I specifically remember this report that I wrote in 8th or 9th grade. And it was like, what do you want to be in the future? You know, what's your career going to be? And I said I was either going to be a professional snowboarder or a Bering Sea fisherman. And my snowboarding career didn't really work out. So all my dreams came true. I'm a Bering Sea fisherman.
Okay.
So
what was your introduction? I mean, it was your uncle, but I mean, actually putting foot on a boat.
Putting foot on a boat was with my uncle. So I graduated high school at 17. And literally the day after I graduated, I was on a plane flying up to Bristol Bay, Alaska. And I was going up to work on my uncle's boat, the Snowy River, which was a 32-foot gillnetter. We were going to do the sockeye run there in Bristol Bay. And prior to this, I had never had a job of any kind. Nice. Not that I was like a spoiled kid or anything, but just, never really had to work for anything. So went up there thinking I was going to be this, big bad crab fisher, not even crab fisherman, just a fisherman. And my uncle definitely kind of taught me the ropes. Wasn't very gentle about it.
Can I ask you to explain what a gillnetter is? I mean,
yeah.
A lot of folks know what a crab boat is, but
so a gillnet, depending on what style, the styles that I've always worked on is a forward houseboat. And on the back deck, we have a big drum that we keep the net on. So we'll set the net right off the back deck, shoot it out, try and block off the river a little bit so that the fish swim right into the net, get stuck. Then we haul that net up, and we have to physically pick the fish out of the net using our hands or picks. And, we just do that for about a month and a half.
Hands get sore?
Oh, man. Like nothing you'd ever believe. You wake up in the morning, and your hands are just totally numb from fingertips to elbows. You can barely use silverware in the morning.
You probably got that story coming from okay, so now we're back. We're on the first boat.
Yep.
It's your uncle's boat.
Uh-huh.
It's a gillnetter.
Uh-huh.
All right, tell us how that experience went.
That experience went, like I was saying, I thought I was going to be all really good at this and, just imagine myself being great at it. And I got up there and it hit me that I was not. I didn't know any knots. I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't realize how hard the work actually was going to be. And my uncle, a great story about it is my birthday I had my 18th birthday while I was on that boat. And he's up on the wheelhouse, and he turned around. Well, my brother and I were working on deck together. Turns around and he goes, "Hey, Willie, happy birthday. It's your birthday." And I go, "Oh, awesome. Cool. Thanks, Kari." He goes, "Yeah, get the fuck back to work." So that was kind of like, oh, okay. All right.
No cake and ice cream.
Keep your head down and just keep trying to go. And, so after that, realized that I wasn't the best fisherman. I flew home from that season. I got home and I was still sleeping I got home that night and I was sleeping in the next day. And I got a call from a very good friend of mine, Casey McManus. And he said, "Hey, do you want to come up and work on the Royal Viking, which is a 108-foot crab boat?"
He goes, "Hey, beautiful boat."
Yeah, beautiful boat. And he goes, "You want to come work on it?" And I'm like, I didn't really have that great of time. I wasn't really that good at it. I don't know, Casey. And he goes, "All right, cool. I got a flight for you, 9 a.m. tomorrow. See ya." So next day I was off.
He's that way.
Yeah, he is that way. So I jumped on a plane, flew up to Ketchikan, and jumped on the Royal Viking. And that's kind of when I got my love for fishing. Because then I'd already gotten the crap kicked out of me on the first boat, kind of had my realization that, okay, I got to work pretty hard. And then I was working with Casey, who's a good buddy of mine, and a couple other guys that were a little younger, and Big Harold was running it.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, I miss that guy.
Oh yeah, me too. So yeah.
Real quick. So you went straight up when you were 17, but I want to get. We didn't really discuss what year that was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was
Put everything in context of an era here.
So I graduated high school in 2006, and literally the day after I graduated, I was on the plane.
This is 11 years ago.
Yep.
We're talking 11 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what did you make that first season? Doing the Gillnet.
I believe it was for like 4 or 5 weeks of work. I made just over $10,000.
Okay.
As a half share green guy who didn't know nothing.
You were happy.
Yeah. Oh, I was ecstatic.
Okay,
yeah.
So now you find yourself up on the Royal Viking with Big Harold.
With Big Harold, and ended up those guys really taught me a lot and kind of broke me in, and I figured, okay, this is actually something I could do. This is something I like doing, and then I started to think about where am I going to go next, because I don't have a permanent spot on this boat, so I got to figure something out. And I applied at Trident Seafoods, and they got me a job on the Columbia, a 123-foot trawler, and it was only supposed to be a 2-week gig, and then they were going to try and help me, find another place. So I get on there for 2 weeks. Really liked working with the guys. We were trawling for pollock in the Bering Sea, and after 2 weeks, they dropped me off in Dutch Harbor, and I was going to go. I forget what else. I was going to go do something else, and I get off. I'm sitting in Dutch, and I had a rental truck, and I was sleeping in the rental truck because I didn't have anywhere to go, and I was trying to find another job. So for 3 nights, I slept in a rental truck in Dutch, and then
because you were on contract, right? So no contract, no.
Yeah,
you're on your own.
I was on my own, just waiting to get a call for another job, or if I could find one by walking down the docks.
Who was running the Columbia?
Jack Mullen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Jack was our first episode.
Yeah, I really like Jack, and so after 3 nights of sleeping up there in the truck, I was at the Trident dock on the Far West Leader, and I was just about to go on there, but the Columbia pulled up, tied up right next to us. They go, "Willie, get back on the boat. We need you." So jump back on the Columbia, and after it's supposed to be a 2-week trip, turned into a 3-year trip.
With a 3-day hiatus, sleeping in a truck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A 3-year trip.
Well, I mean, three years total.
You stayed on. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So how did that experience go? Because now we've gill-netted in Bristol Bay, which is a totally chaotic experience. Right?
Yes, that's battle fishing. That's like where boats are almost ramming into each other, and you're fighting on this imaginary line that you can't cross because that's out of the fishing boundaries. So everybody's butted up. All 1,800 boats are butted up against this imaginary line, trying to get the first set where the fish are first piling into the river.
Right, because there is a quota there, but not an individual boat quota.
No, it's catch as much as you can catch.
You can catch of the big quota.
Yeah, the fleet has a certain quota.
So that's why it's such a mad rush. Is everybody's just trying to get their piece of that pie, much like crab was back in the day. Before rationalization and quotas.
Yep, exactly.
So okay, so then you move over to crabbing a little bit. Now you're doing trawling for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
There's already 3 different big fishery experiences here.
Yeah. So working on the Columbia was really great for me, and I didn't want to leave, and I really liked it. But after 3 years, that's 6 seasons. So I knew pretty much everything to do on a trawler. I considered myself full share, so I went up and I asked. It was actually Rick. It's Rick's last name.
Rick Clark?
Yeah, Rick Clark. I asked Rick, I was like, hey, this is the end of an A season, and I go, hey, I want to be full share. I want to get paid full. I'm doing everything these guys are doing. And so they had a meeting and decided they were going to give me a little bump in pay, but they weren't going to give me full share. And I said, well, you know what? I really like you guys, but I gotta move on. I gotta do my own thing. So I quit. And it was the end of the season. I made sure I finished out the season, but I quit. Kind of said I was going to do something else and quit fishing actually and move on. And
you gonna go snowboard?
Yeah, I was going to do something. I had no idea what I was going to do. And so after a month of just kind of trying to figure it out and everything, my brother approached me with the idea, why don't we buy a Bristol Bay boat? Why not? He'd been fishing Bristol Bay for like 6-8 years at this time.
All on your uncle's boat?
On my uncle's boat.
Mm-hmm. So
he knew what he was doing up there, and I'd been fishing on the Columbia, so I knew how to fish, not as well in Bristol Bay, but so yeah, after a month off, I bought a boat, my first boat. That was when I was 21.
What was the boat?
The Arctic Osprey was the first boat.
How big was she?
32-foot aluminum hull, Bristol Bay boat, the forward house, big net reel on the back, stern roller, had a little 200 horsepower diesel engine in it, nothing special, did about 6 knots with the hammer down.
Mhm.
And we bought that boat, fixed her up a little bit, and just ran that thing as hard as we could each season. I still own that boat too. So my brother and I worked together on that boat for I can't remember exactly how many. It was 5 or 6 years we worked together on that boat, and then finally, okay, well, I was working on. So once I bought that boat, I would go up and do Bristol Bay on there, and then I started fishing on other boats. I got onto the Billiken, and I started crabbing on there, and I stuck on the Billiken for about 4 years, and that was where I really, really excelled and really became as good of a fisherman as I am today. Those guys really taught me up, and there's no excuses, just hammer down and go for it.
And who was running the Billiken at that time?
That was Jim Hill.
Jim Hill, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Jim Hilt, and had a couple of big Samoan guys on there that work with a 400-pound Samoan, and they don't take no for an answer. They say get to it, and
You get
yes
to
sir.
it. Yeah.
So they really taught me up, and Jim Hilt was awesome.
So summers you're running your own program. You're the owner of the boat. You're
owner of the boat, but I was working on deck.
Oh, so you were.
I was working on deck. My brother was up in the wheelhouse, and after a few years, we kind of finally. I had my ideas, and my brother had his ideas. So the last year that we worked together, what ended our season was there were some punches thrown, some fish flying around, and some punches thrown, and we said, you know what, we gotta not work together anymore. You know how brothers are.
You bet.
So that was that kind of sucked, but we had a good season regardless, and got home, and my brother called me after a few days of being home, and he goes, you know what, like we should still work together. We're brothers who love each other. Let's figure out how to make this work. So we made a plan to buy another boat, and took us so one more year on the Arctic Osprey, which I ran it the next year, and Griffin stayed home, and then the year after that we bought our second boat.
And the entire time you're still going up for winters doing Opilio and
Kings going up
and
doing
Tanner when possible.
Yep, still doing Opies and Tanners and king crab
on the Billiken.
On the Billiken, yep. Mm-hmm.
Let's keep it flowing.
Yeah. So after that, we bought our second boat, the Finnegan, which is another Bristol Bay aluminum hull forward house boat. A little bit bigger, a little bit nicer.
Who got the boat?
my brother got the boat the first year, mainly because I was extremely familiar with the Arctic Osprey, and I just knew its in and outs. I mean, I've been working on it for 6 years at this time. I've been every single place on that boat that you can get to. I'd been there and knew it like the back of my hand. So he got the Finnegan. He ran the Finnegan for 2 years, and I continued to run the Osprey, and those were great years for us. We worked together really well, as long as we were on different boats. So we worked together, caught a lot of fish, got our permits, because permits are expensive as well. So it costs just about as much as a boat.
Is there a limited number of permits?
There are.
So someone's got to be selling in order for you to be buying.
Yep. And so they. I forget how we acquired our second one, but yeah, we just came across a couple good deals, bought those, and just fished for 2 years together. And then he's since kind of retired from fishing, and the Finnegan we had put a lot of money into and made it really nice. It's a beautiful boat now. And so I took that over, and I've been running that for 2 years, and we lease out the Arctic Osprey now to other people to run, and that's what we're doing now with our Bristol Bay boats.
Yeah, you keep referring to your brother as your older brother, right?
Yeah.
How much older is he?
He is, now you're putting me on the spot. He's 2 years, 3 years older than me.
We're brothers. We love each other. I don't know how old he is.
Yeah, I know. I feel bad, and he's going to listen to this and be like, oh, thanks, Willie.
Hey, don't worry. We'll get him on here next.
Yeah. So now
you've been running that.
Uh-huh.
So obviously you're a captain.
Yep.
So captain in the summer, deckhand in the winter.
Yep.
And you're still doing that rotation now, right? But just a different boat.
Yep. So when let's see, the second year that I had the Finnegan, I got an offer to go work on the Cornelia Marie, because my uncle had bought it from Cornelia, and he wanted me to go on there, and I was just ready for a change. Billiken was a great boat, but it was time for me to see if I could move up, and I figured, shoot, my uncle just bought a boat. There's a lot of chance that I can move up there. So I jumped over onto the Cornelia, and I worked on there doing king crab, opies, and tanners, and continued to fish Bristol Bay.
That boat got a massive makeover here a couple
It
years
did,
ago.
and it went from being pretty. I mean, to tell the truth, I wouldn't have gone and worked on it if it didn't get that massive makeover. It was really in rough shape.
Mm-hmm.
So they really made it nice and made it a nice
set
boat.
for a few years there, so right?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. It didn't fish for a few years, so.
But before you get too much into the CM, right? I mean, because I'm really interested in your Bristol Bay fishery, but I also want to know. I mean, so at this point, you're 11 years in the fishery as of today, as we said here.
Yeah.
Were you scared at all? Was there times when you were scared? And I mean,
sure, yeah. There's lots of times when there's one year that my brother and I were fishing on the Arctic Osprey, and the salmon run just didn't come through like we thought it would. And, we had a lot of bills to pay. We had just bought, we were still paying off the boat and still paying off the permit and stuff. And so we didn't really know what we were going to do because we didn't catch enough fish. And we just barely made it by the skin of our teeth, pulled it together, and were able to pay our bills until, next year's came along and made it so that we ended up okay. But yeah, I was scared I was going to lose everything and have to start over from square one.
So you were financially scared.
Financially scared, and
how about physically scared?
Physically scared. There was let's see. I wish I could remember the year that I was on. I did a fill-in job on the Pacific Mariner, which is 108-foot crab boat. We were going up to St. Matthews to do blue crab.
It's way up there, man.
It took us like 2.5 days just to get to the fishing grounds.
How big did you say she was?
I believe it's 108. It's similar to the word, like
pretty much average size blue crab boat up there.
Yeah. So I jumped on there right after a red crab season. I got off the Billiken. I was the chief engineer. And we go up there and we are just killing it. Just catching blue crab like crazy, which is not very common for that fishery. That's a really hard fishery and you usually don't do too well. But
how many a pot?
We were getting about 40 to 50 a pot, which a good blue crab season, you're getting about 10 to 13 a pot.
Yeah.
So we were just on it. And we did that for about 11 days. And I forget how much crab we had in the hold, but we were traveling into Dutch, had 140 pots on the boat and probably 50,000 pounds of blues in the hold. And we were coming in, and I remember one of the deckhands, Bobby, was driving the boat, and I was sitting shotgun in the wheelhouse. We were just kind of BSing as we were heading in. Really rough weather. I mean, brutal weather. And we saw this wave come in. We were probably in about 20 to 25 footers, and we saw this wave that was, just towering over the rest. Probably, I don't want to say 40 because I didn't have a measuring stick on it,
right.
But it was huge. And so
it was scary.
We ducked underneath the dashboard there in the wheelhouse, and this wave hit so hard. A little bit of water coming in through the windows, and everything in the wheelhouse just went everywhere. Papers, computers, everything just went everywhere. And I got up and I looked over at Bobby and I go, I gotta go check my engine room. He's like, yeah, okay. Starts trying to put everything together in the wheelhouse. I run down the stairs, get down there, and as I turn to the left, I see a 4-foot spray of water coming flying over the engine. Just massive amounts of water just flying into the engine room. And I go, oh, shit, right. We're sinking. So I ran back upstairs, woke everybody up, said, hey, we're sinking. We got to handle this. And we're in rough weather, and everybody's asleep, so they're kind of groggily getting up. Get back down there.
How long does it take you to wake up when someone says we're sinking?
They got up pretty quick. They were down there, in a couple minutes there. And so we just got all the pumps, every single bilge pump we get. We had our emergency suction pump going. We had our little diesel drive pump that you have out on deck. We had that pumping water out. And we could barely keep up with the water. And it was coming in through this 6-inch pipe that feeds the main with cold water to keep the main engine cool.
So it was actually from a pipe. It wasn't a.
Yeah, it wasn't a hole damage. Luckily.
Okay, yeah.
And so it's spraying this water. So it got up probably to the floorboards, which would be, if I was standing in the bilge, probably about waist height on me. So much water we had.
That's only what, 6 or 8 inches below the engines?
Oh, it was already up to the engines.
Already up to the engines.
Oh yeah, it was up past the oil pan, just about to the point where we're gonna lose our engine. And then we're really screwed because then we'll go into the ditch and roll over. And so we ended up wrapping it we had a couple damage control kits, and we ended up wrapping it with old survival suit material, this stuff we call oil tape. Oil tape.
Gorilla tape?
No, not Gorilla tape. It's Denso tape.
Denso tape.
Yeah.
Denso tape, yeah.
Denso tape, old survival suit, old rain gear, and we just because we couldn't get to the pipe to actually like fix it, and it was just broken. So we wrapped it up as much as we could, tied it off, and had to keep it running because it was the only thing cooling the main down was that water going in, so we could still use the main. Slowed the water down enough that our pumps could keep up with it, and then we sat there we were about 8 hours outside of Dutch at normal speed, and it took us, I think, 14 to 16 hours to get actually into town. And we sat there for 14 to 16 hours staring at all of our pumps, making sure no rags or anything got sucked into them to stop them from working, because if they did, we were going to sink. That was extremely scary.
I'm a little on edge just from hearing it.
Yeah, I mean, we got to town. As soon as we tied that boat up to the dock, I think everybody jumped off that boat and started kissing the ground. We were so happy to make it in.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty scary one.
Those patch kits are incredible.
Oh yeah, it's I took a damage control class after this, and I was telling the guys what we used, and they're kind of like, "Wow, you should buy some real stuff," But luckily, we just had the right stuff and a good crew that kind of could figure out, okay, this is what we got to do to make it work.
That's a serious panic.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I've heard some other guys talk about being in that kind of situation. You can't prepare for it.
No, you can't at all. There's another time when I was on the Billiken and I was up on the stack, and we were stacking out to go home, and we had full tanks of crab and full set of gear. So we were probably 140, 150 pots on the boat. And I was tying down pots up on top of the stack, and I hear the guys start yelling, "What is going on?" So I lean over the side, and I just see water just pouring over the starboard rail, coming on deck. The guys are climbing up pots. They're climbing up the coiler. They're trying to get out of the water because there's so much water on deck. We're all going, "What the heck's going on here?" So I told Jim Hill, who was running it at the time, I was waving to him because I couldn't talk to him because I was outside and he was inside. And we're taking on water. And so I run down there, and everybody runs down. We look in the lower forepeak of the boat, and there was a bulkhead hole that had not been sealed up. So there was water just flooding down there. So we had 2 or 3 feet of water down there that made the bow go way down, which allowed water just to be pouring over the starboard rail. And I remember we got the pump going, the dewatering pump, down in the lower forepeak to get all the water out of there. And I just kept remember hearing Jim Hilt over the loud hither, can we still fish? Can we still haul pots? I'm like, "No, Jim, we can't haul gear. We got water coming on the boat." And he's like, "Oh," finally he came down and realized, "Oh, okay, this is what's going on. And okay, well, let's get this done." Saved it and got everything.
I want to interject here just real quick, because this is probably the first time I thought about this during all these that I've done. I've never had somebody so animated. You're not only talking, right, but you're playing hand charades. You're waving everything. The waves are coming over, and your hands are going over. And this is almost one that needed to be on video.
Yeah. I kind of wish it was. Not for any other reason. That's just how I've talked, and I like to
talk a lot with your hands.
I do, and I feel like that really kind of helps get the story across, because it's hard for the stuff that we go through up there in the Bering Sea, or just on fishing boats in general. I mean, it's so different than normal people's jobs, and to try and explain a situation where you have a big wave come over and it blasts your buddy over, and you can't find him. You're trying to look for him on deck and everything, and then you find him crumpled up underneath the sorting table. I mean, how do you explain that to somebody?
Right.
You lost your friend, you don't know where he went, and then all of a sudden you see him passed out underneath the sorting table, so I try to really explain it the best I can.
No, I think it's great. But your real world experiences are not that much, because you stepped out of high school and went straight to Alaska.
Yeah.
I
don't think I've really had any other jobs.
It sounds like you've had some good mentorship there. Your uncle took you up when you were 17.
He did.
You're with family. You're learning from family. But do you think he was tougher on you than some of these other skippers were?
I know that my uncle was tougher on me than some guys. And for probably about a year or two after that, I kind of resented him for it. I was like, man, he's so mean to me and hard on me. And it took me about 2 years to realize that he knew that I would be better than I was, and that's why he was so hard on me. And now I appreciate it. Now I'm glad that he was kind of such an asshole, because it made me a better man, better fisherman.
Yeah, I was speaking to a buddy today at work and mentioned that we were going to be getting together today, and he says, that guy, he's built like an 80s crabber. He said, "You're just tough."
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm 6'4", about 240 pounds, and I like to work. That's what I like to do,
I'm glad you like to work, because when we get down here, I got a few projects on the gale.
Yeah, sure.
So you probably had some good times up there too. It's not,
yeah.
That was a pretty scary story, though. I
Yeah.
mean, I just can't even imagine it.
Sometimes it still gives me shivers thinking about, like the exact moment. Like the moment that I remember the most about being on that Pac-Man was just taking that step down the engine room and turning to my left and seeing that water spray in.
Slow motion.
Yeah, exactly. Slow motion. My heart sank, and I just go, "Oh, we are sinking! Like this boat's going down." And I'll never forget that. That's something that I'll just.
I don't think our listeners are going to forget that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some fun experiences. We have to have some of those too.
Well, fun experience this last year in Bristol Bay. I was running the Finnegan, and I had one of my buddies with me and two good deckhands. So the four of us were on the boat, and we just got into the fish big time. I mean, we were bringing in 20 to 30,000 pounds of fish a day, which for a good day in Bristol Bay, you try and hit anywhere from 5,000 pounds to 10,000 pounds a day. We were bringing in 20 to 30.
That was just last year.
This was this year.
Yeah, it was a killer season.
It was unbelievable. I mean, we would offload, and I'd be like, guys, don't even worry about anything. Just get the net ready. We're setting it. We'd turn around 500 feet later. I'm telling them to throw the net back out in the water, and we'd drift right up, be filling up. I mean, it was awesome. It was so much fun. And
how your boat is doing changes everything about it, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned before your biggest fear that you ran into up there, at least before we got to the physical part, was financial.
Yeah.
And that was because you were not catching fish.
Yeah.
So here you find yourself deck loading.
Yeah, and you're not worried about that anymore.
No.
Now all you got to worry about is, okay, are my guys going to be able to move tomorrow? Because I'm working them so hard, for the last 3 or 4 days.
Does that matter when the net's full?
To me, no. and I know, like, that this year too, my guys were getting kind of grouchy and mad at me for the first couple days of it because, I was working them to the bone, But then they kind of started to do the numbers on their own. They kind of started to realize, hey, he's working us extra hard, but we're making more money than we've ever made in our lives. And as long as we keep doing this, I mean, we're going to go home and two of the guys, they don't have to pay for, I paid for their college. Or, well, I didn't, I paid them. They were going to be able to pay for it with no loans or anything. They worked
for it, right?
They worked for it, absolutely. But, that's a pretty cool thing for them. They don't have to worry about any loans.
So when I asked you about your scary experience, the first one was financial.
Yeah.
When I asked you about your fun experience, it was financial.
Yeah.
Now let's get a funny story.
A funny story. Let's see.
You don't have to dig hard. I know you don't.
I know. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I mean, there's a great clip that I have that I wish I could show the listeners of when I was cod fishing on the Billiken. And most people probably wouldn't think this is fun, but I was running the block, and my buddy Tiki, big small guy, was throwing the hook. He throws the hook, and he hands the buoys off to me. And I'm going to put the buoys into the block. The block is the thing that pulls the crab pots on board. And so I get it in, and it's, of course, rough weather. We're in the Bering Sea. And this wave comes over, and I just get the diver bag just through the block, and this wave just hits me and just takes me out, wipes me like halfway down the deck. And you see this on this video clip. And I get blasted back. And when the water recedes, I'm still holding onto that diver bag, and I get up, throw the diver bag behind me, and I grab the rest of the line, I put it in the coiler, run back, turn the block full speed, and it's like, still going, brother. Ain't nothing going to slow us down.
And you got this on video?
I do, yeah.
Well, I mean, we could probably put a link to it on the bottom of this podcast. When you're checking out the section, guys, of the description, check there, and if he can get it to me, I'll put it on there.
I'll get it. I got it somewhere. So yeah. So that's, I mean, most people probably wouldn't think that's fun, getting blasted by a wave and getting soaking wet. And
this is a guy who wanted to make his living as a snowboard guy. Right? So you're just boarding across the deck there
and just getting blasted.
So I want to be clear with some of our listeners though. You were doing cod, but you were doing them with pots.
Yeah.
So this is just like crab fishing, but
yeah. So sometimes in between like king crab and opie season, there's pot cod openers. So we rig the crab pots so that they will hold, they'll catch codfish. And so to make a little extra money, we'll go cod fishing with our crab gear. And then once, that season's over, then we'll switch back over to crab.
So obviously you changed something about the pot then.
Yeah. So each crab pot has tunnels and triggers that allow crab to go in and not allow them to get back out. So you take that trigger mechanism and you take that off and you put one that's specifically designed to allow codfish in and not back out. So it's not too big of a change. It's pretty easy, a couple zip ties. And
don't they have some sharp edges on them?
Yeah, so they have almost like fingers that stick inwards and they cross sect. So when the fish can swim in like through the fingers, but then they're pointed, the sharp points are pointed inwards in the pot, so the fish can't, it pokes them, so they don't want to swim back out.
Yeah. Which is like better, crabbing or cod?
Oh, I hate cod fishing. It's such a grind, man.
This last year, the prices were so good, it had to be.
The price was really good. I fished pot cod this year, and we were catching a lot of cod, did pretty well. But it is, we work 24/7 and just rotate on deck, so we always have one guy in the rack, and the boat's always running. So, still doing the Finnegan now today. Yep.
You plan on going up this next year.
Yep.
And you've been now on the CM, the Cray Marie.
No, I'm not on the CM anymore.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
We moved from there. We kind of skipped over that because I was avoiding that part until we.
Yeah.
So I understand that. Again, Casey just called you up No, your uncle.
My uncle called me up and said he wanted me to come work on the Cornelia, and I was like, yeah, okay. There's probably some room for advancement there. It sounds like a good idea. So I jumped on there, and I really enjoyed my time working on there. It was a good group of guys, and the boat's set up really nice now. And some things happen, what I would rather not get into them. But it was time for me to get onto another boat, and I got on the Brenne. So now I'm on the Brenne, and I've been on there for the last year and a half, almost 2 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. For some reason, I was still thinking you were on the CM, but
yeah,
I keep up.
Yeah, well, it's hard. I don't jump boats too much, but I used to. In between seasons, I used to try and go on any boat that would take me after the main boat that I was working on. Once it was done, I'd try and get on any other boats. I'd get more experience, more money.
You're going after scraps, man.
Yeah. So
you're at this point, what, 29, 28?
29.
29.
Mm-hmm.
And how's the life fishing's given you?
The life that fishing has given me a lot of freedom. And when I'm not fishing, I'm traveling. I've been all over the world. I have a lot of off time, and I'm able to do whatever I want with that off time. I don't have to get up at 9 o'clock in the morning to go to work or anything like that. So I like it, and it's allowed me to live comfortably and just kind of enjoy myself when I'm not up there.
You chasing any snow slopes?
I used to really be into snowmobiling, but I haven't been in the last couple of years just because I've been working too much. So I haven't been able to do that. But no, I don't snowboard anymore. My dreams of being a professional snowboarder went out the window a long time ago.
Did they?
Yeah.
So never went back to that. When we had Jack on here, the captain you have in the Columbia, he was a surfing bum.
He was, yeah.
Well, I can't say bum because he worked his ass off to be able to do it, but he just chased the water.
Oh yeah.
So I didn't know if you were getting off the boat chasing the snow.
Oh no, I just chase the sun now.
Oh, yeah.
It's so cold up there and everything that I like to be warm on a beach. That's my idea of happiness now. Just kind of hanging out, enjoying the sun, and no worries. So
can you describe a cold experience up there? That
sure.
There's a lot of folks they get, like right now in Seattle, it's 40 degrees and people are so bundled up that they don't.
Yeah. Well, one of the colder experiences I had, I was on the Columbia working for Jack. Actually, it was the middle of winter, and for some reason, our forward hydraulic station wasn't working, so I had to run the hydraulic controls, the net reel to bring the net aboard and everything, from the very back of the boat. And the wind chill was so bad, I think it was somewhere around -19, pretty cold, and I was bundled up. I had long underwear, 2 sweatshirts, 2 sets of rain gear, a big puffy life jacket, and just bundled up. So once we got done working on deck, I walked inside to where we change our rain gear, and I just remember kind of like stretching my arms back, like you do, and I hear this cracking, and I'm like, what the heck? I took my my rain gear off, and I had about half an inch of ice built up on the back of my rain gear, and that's cold when you got that much ice built up.
Some listeners might have a concept of -19, but -19 on the open water,
wind chill
is different.
It is.
Than than any other negative 19 you're going to experience.
Oh yeah, because I mean, if you got negative 19 just on land or something, you don't have somebody sitting there with a garden hose spraying you in the face.
It changes the aspect,
and that's what it's like in the Bering Sea. You got water flying everywhere, wind, and the boat's not stable, so you're slipping on all the ice that's on deck. Yeah, it's pretty miserable, really.
Traditionally, this would be the point where I'd kind of ask, hey, how would you suggest some young buck get in there? But you're still young yourself. I mean, 11 years though. That's 11 hard years doing it. So what would you suggest to these guys just stepping out of high school? I mean,
stepping out of high school and how to get into the fishing industry. I would honestly say try to get into the salmon industries. Bristol Bay is a great way, or seining down in Southeast, and that way you kind of get your foot in the door, and you're not. I mean, crab fishing is extremely difficult, and if you go up there and just think that you're going to be a great crab fisherman, probably not. So test out one of the fisheries that's not quite as difficult, one of the salmon industries, or even pollock trawling, and see if it's for you. And then if you really like that, then step up to the big leagues and try and get on a crab boat. And how to do that? Just start stomping on the docks, or if you know somebody in the industry, you got to call them and say, hey, who do I talk to, or what companies can I apply to, or how do I go about doing this?
And then once you get that opportunity,
once you get that opportunity, just yes sir, man.
So one more subject I'd like to touch on. We've never touched on this in any of the podcasts before, so you're certainly not prepared for this.
That's all right.
But boat dreams. You dream different and you sleep different when you're on a boat than you do on land. Can you?
So we call them fish dreams.
Okay.
But it's the same thing. I knew exactly what you're talking about. I remember the first time that I had some fish dreams. I was on the Snowy River, my uncle's Gillnetter, the very first boat that I ever went on, and I was sleeping in my in the little forepeak where I slept, and I kept thinking that I had to be out on deck working because the net was. I was dreaming. Remember, the net was coming into my room where I'm sleeping. So I'm laying there asleep trying to pick these fish out of this net that I'm dreaming about. I kept waking up going, oh, no, I'm just sleeping. And it's just the weirdest thing 'cause it's so vivid. And you've been working so much doing the same thing over and over again that even in your sleep, you're still doing it.
And you remember every detail.
Oh, yeah. You got this. Oh, I can't get this fish out. Yeah.
I got to share mine with you.
Yeah.
Mine's a little different. It's a tank. I mean, I'm in the fish tank.
Mm-hmm.
And this fish tank, it doesn't have a suction hose in it. It's got a drain, like your bathtub.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, and this is still vivid today, I'm standing right on the edge of the fish tank, and my mom's talking to me. What she's doing on the boat, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I go, Mom, don't worry about it. It's fine. And I nest T plunge, just kind of the backwards fall, thinking I'm going to be landing all this water.
Uh-huh.
And again, it's a vivid dream. I hit the bottom of the fish tank, and it didn't have any water in it. So now I feel like I got a head injury, right? But then all of a sudden it's full of water again, and I'm swirling around, going down and down and down. But otherwise, again, those are vivid, and they're so clear.
Yeah, you'll never forget it.
But then at the same time, I've never slept better than I have on boats.
I always, as soon as I step foot for a new season, we fly up to Alaska, and I step foot on the boat, and that first night, oh man, it's like I'm out like a light. That's great. Something about living on the water. I don't know what it is, but for me, I'm back home.
That's why you and I are sitting here right now.
Yeah.
There's no place I'd rather be than on a boat.
Yep.
When I go to sleep.
Absolutely.
So, Willie, this has been Willie Manchester with us today. I can't thank you enough for coming out.
I'm glad you invited me down. I heard a couple of your other casts here, and I wanted to do it. It was fun.
Well, I hope that you've enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to change things up just a little bit today. We've been getting a couple before we close out.
Yeah.
We've been getting a couple of these letters that come in.
Sure.
And I think we should do a little like mail call.
Okay.
And me reading a very long paragraph is not going to be the best thing. So I'll probably read this a little slow. But I want to give you guys an idea of some of the feedback that we've had from the show so far,
mm-hmm.
and also encourage any of you listening to write in, and we'll provide that information here for you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read this letter for you. It is coming from Sue Fries.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Mark. This is Sue Fries. I'm not sure we've ever met. I'm married to Jeff, who I'm sure you know is the captain of the Viking Explorer. He shared with me the link to your new podcast, Galley Stories. I just want to personally thank you for undertaking this project and to encourage you to continue it. I've listened, captivated, to each of the first four. They naturally each have their own flavor and color, but they are perfectly captured hearing the stories told by fishermen themselves, in their own voice, with a little prompting if necessary. I've been with Jeff for 37 years. Hearing the tales of just the first four, names and boats mentions are all familiar. The stories, the backgrounds, the history, what a great way to preserve this way of life. Listening to Tor speak of Kari reminded me of meeting him and his wife when they came camping here once in Long Beach. What a good man he was. I look forward with great anticipation to more episodes. Sincerely, Sue Priest. So, guys, that's what we're looking for, is more feedback like that. I encourage you to, first of all, follow us on Twitter at Galley Stories. We have a whole 4 followers right now. I'm really excited about that. And then also to encourage you to follow, like, and subscribe, and share with those that you think might be interested. And any questions and comments and stories like this or letters like this, please just go ahead and email Mark at galleystories.net. Willie, you have anything to add?
I think it's pretty awesome to hear some feedback like that. And for me personally, if you guys have any questions, whatever, I'd be happy to get back to Mark any other time and answer any that you have for me. And I'm sure the other guys would too. But yeah, keep tuning in. And there's all kinds of stories that you haven't heard yet. I know if I know anything about the fishing industry, these fishermen, they got some tales that will blow your mind.
Great. All right, guys. So that's going to be it from the Gale today. This has been Galley Stories, and I'm your host, Mark Haler. And we'll see you next time.